Hi, welcome back. So this video will be a little bit more personal because I will address what I've gone through when I started having PCOS symptoms and I was diagnosed. Like I explained in a previous video, I think it's important to do that because I remember the state of mind I was in, and I remember how hearing about other women who are going through the same thing as me really helped me and gave me courage to push through and find solutions. So let's rewind back in time. I initially started having problems probably around 2014-15. It's currently end of 2019. Basically I was just not feeling good. I was always feeling sick, struggle with really bad anxiety. And then I started losing a lot of hair, and I would have a lot of gastrointestinal symptoms. I knew there was something wrong with my body, I just didn't know what. And I would talk to my family physician about it. She would run blood tests and analyze my urine and all, and everything she tested was always fine. So it was always like, oh, you're probably anxious, your hair is fine, you're not losing your hair. But I kind of knew that it really wasn't the way that it was before. And then I started looking up things, and I remember when I was looking at, causes for hair loss, I remember reading about polycystic ovary syndrome, and I remember reading about, more body hair, and I knew I've always had a little bit more body hair than some of my friends, even as a teenager. So I kind of started suspected something at that point, and at that point in time, I was taking the birth control pill. I was taking Yasmin, and there was a lot of stuff that had came out saying how bad that pill was, that it could cause a stroke and embolism, or I'm not too sure what it was, but I just remember that there wasn't really good press for that pill. And so, because we couldn't really figure out what was going on, I thought, I'm just going to stop the pill and see what happens. At this point, I had finished my bachelor's degree. I had been in a relationship for several years with my now husband. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to stop the pill and see what happens. We were using some other protection to make sure we weren't getting pregnant because we weren't ready for that at that point. And initially everything was fine. I didn't have anything really weird going on. I did have a period that was very light, and my cycles were a little bit longer, but it was still happening quite regularly. My skin was fine, my hair was kind of stable, it didn't grow back or anything, but I wasn't losing more. Until suddenly, about 6 months after I stopped the pill, everything just completely changed. So I started shedding so much hair on my head. I'll try to find a picture and insert a picture of how my hair was then, so you can kind of see how it is now, and I'll show you the picture of then. I started having atrocious acne. I had it all over my back, and I had it all over here in my neck, and it would also go on my cheeks. And it wasn't just like small little bumps that last a few days and go. It was, those big cysts that are super red and inflamed, and that just like leaning on a chair, it would just be really uncomfortable. And the bump takes weeks to kind of just swell down a little bit, and then the red spot stays for like months after that. So that really affected my self-esteem. I remember, trying to wear scarves to hide all of the acne. I was trying to wear shirts that had a high collar because I didn't want anybody to see my back because it was so horrible. Yeah, so I struggle with really bad self-esteem. I didn't want my boyfriend at the time to touch me, because I felt, don't touch my back, it's gross, it's disgusting, and it hurts. And then around the same time also I just stopped having my period. So I had my period, although it was light for several months, and then suddenly boom, I just didn't have my period anymore. So yeah, with all that hair falling, the acne, not having my period, I was like, yeah, for sure I have PCOS. So I went to see my family doctor. My family doctor says, yeah, you probably have PCOS. We're going to refer you to an endocrinologist. So I was like, okay, at that point, I started reading and researching, because I'm not a really patient person, and I was even less at that time. And so within a few weeks, I had already read so much about PCOS. I was like, I know this is what I have, based on the criteria, right? Absent period, and then signs of hyperandrogenism. So I was like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna diagnose me with that. I wanted to go because I knew there was other conditions they had to exclude, just to make sure that was what it is. And I kind of had already read about the treatments, and I knew they would probably want to put me on the pill again. But the main concern that I had is, for me, having kids had always been something that was super, super important. And knowing that that might be really hard or impossible, it was just breaking my heart. So I wanted to do everything that I could to try to make it better, because even though I didn't want kids at the time, I knew I did want some down the line, and I knew it would likely take me some time to heal my body. So I pretty much started on a mission and just read and read and read. And I didn't see the endocrinologist for several months, because I don't know where you live, but where I live, usually if you want to see a specialist, it's a good 6, 7, 8 months, if not a year or more. So I think it took 8 months before I eventually saw her. And before I even saw her, at that point, I hadn't had my period for 4 months. And I had read about ovasitol, which is basically just a mix of 2 isomers of inositol, which is a supplement. It's something that's found in your food. Kind of like, it's not a vitamin, but kind of you get the idea. And it acts similarly to metformin, but from what I could read in all the research, it had fewer side effects. So I was like, maybe I should try that. But the only thing that kind of scared me about that is that I was like, okay, well, it's still a new thing. How do I know that it won't be dangerous in the long term, right? And so I started asking several pharmacists about it and asking them what they thought about it, if they thought there was any danger. They pretty much all told me, I don't think there's any danger in trying it, but if it works, it might take some time. And so I started taking it. So like I said, it had been 4 months at that point that I didn't have my period, and about a month or 2 after, boom, my period just came back, and I've had it every month ever since, and I've been taking ovasitol ever since. Now the ovasitol really helped with getting my period back, and it helped to some extent with the acne and the hair loss, but there was still struggling a lot with acne, and I was still struggling a lot with hair loss. And although I had my period, it really wasn't regular. So I could get cycles of 50 days, and then 28, and then 45, and then it would just be all over the place. And so I will discuss that a little bit later, but there's a lot of other lifestyle changes that I've done that have really helped reduce the symptoms. So I wouldn't say that at this point I'm symptomless, because that's not true, but I would say that the hair loss has stabilized, so it's not just going downhill, it's pretty stable. The acne, as you can see, is pretty good. I still get some a little bit here, and I have a little bit of scarring. In my back, I pretty much have no acne. I have a little bit of scars. So yeah, I get some pimples here and there, and often my skin does take longer to heal than most people, but really it's so much better than it used to be. And at this point, my cycles are 32 days on the dot, so I can say that in 5 years I've gone a long way, and I certainly will share everything that I've done, because if it can help somebody else, that would be awesome.